Welcome to Midcard Maniacs, I'm Jay, and today we're going to be talking about wrestlers that appear in indie horror movies that you can watch for free over on Tubi. Yeah. As some of you may or may not already know, me and John, my co-host who's not with me right now, we have another channel that covers only horror movies called Bloodbath & Beyond. Link is in the description if you want to check that out. But I wanted to merge the two and do a video here to talk about some wrestlers in horror. Now, this is all indie stuff. It's not going to be Santa's Slay, They Live, and like See No Evil. Those are all run-of-the-mill stuff that you find on top 10 lists all the time. Everything that I'm presenting today are all really low-budget horror movies that you can find for free on Tubi. Links will be in the description to all of the movies. I'm a Canadian using a VPN to watch the US content, so this is all on the US catalog. These range from good to bad depending on what your tastes are. These are all extremely low budget, so it depends on how familiar you are with like indie horror and micro budgets. Some of them have budgets of $1,000, some of them have like $1 million budget. But we're gonna cover them. I'll let you know which ones I actually recommend because I don't recommend all of these. I just wanted to let you know about them. So we're gonna kick this off with Enter Zombie King. This is a very strange horror comedy about zombies, and I wanted this to start the list because it's all about wrestling. There's luchadors, there's wrestlers featured. We've got Tyson Dukes, we've got Beth Phoenix as a zombie. Sin Bodhi, or some of you may know him as Kazarni, is actually the Zombie King himself. And we've got a really funny scene from the late Jim the Anvil Neidhart.
We just came outside to...
To what?
Smoke a joint.
I should have known drugs had something to do with this.
I don't know if I can necessarily recommend it unless you're with like friends or you're having a few drinks or something. It's super cheesy, it's all over the place, but it is about wrestlers. Next up is Army of the Damned. This is from 2013 and has a really interesting cast. We've got horror mainstays like Tony Todd and Michael Berryman, but we also have Tommy Dreamer, Thea Trinidad or Zelina Vega, and Maria Kanellis. This is on the upper end of the budget on this entire list because the production value looks pretty solid. This is one of those movies I have not seen yet, but it looks great, at least for my taste. It looks like it's the right amount of cheesy, but also not being too over the top. Scrubbing through some of the effects look good. We've got some action sequences, and plus we have like such a weird cast working together. It's definitely a movie we're going to be checking out on the other channel. Next, we've got Overtime, starring Al Snow. This was a fantastic film. It's more like an action comedy sci-fi kind of dealio, but Al Snow absolutely kills it. Him and his partner, played by John Wells, battled zombie aliens, and this was a blast. This one again was super low budget, but Al Snow absolutely kills it.
Rafe, this woman with the gun to my head?
Yeah.
Is she hot?
Yeah.
He rocks a suit like nobody's business. He's just badass through and through, and the movie kind of continues to up its game as you go through it. It's not the best by any means, but it is a fun time. Next up we have Slaw. It's a weird Saw movie parody about coleslaw of all things. I wasn't a huge fan of this, but the reason why I'm sharing it is because it does have some people that don't really show up in that many horror movies, and because comedy is super subjective. I didn't really like this movie because of the comedy itself. Anyway, it features Kevin Nash, Glacier, the Nature Boy Paul Lee, Doc Gallows, and Amber O'Neil. It's a couple brothers pissed off because they didn't get condiments or someone at a restaurant treated them poorly, or multiple restaurants, so they take all of the people and put them into a room and they have little coleslaw based traps. It's stupid, and the name in the poster is funny, but I'm not sure that they needed to make an entire movie about it. Next, we've got almost a mandatory double feature, which is Forgotten Tales and Doll Murder Spree, that both feature Shotzi Blackheart before she was in NXT, before she was really a known wrestler. These movies are like made for next to no budget. Forgotten Tales is an anthology, so it has a bunch of different stories. The one that features Shotzi is okay, nothing too crazy about it, but I was surprised to see that she did full frontal. She's completely naked in this movie, and she has a bath, and the role is pretty small. She basically just has a bath and then gets stabbed in it, and that's it. So that's why I paired this with another movie by the same director, same kind of budget. Doll Murder Spree is a slasher film where Shotzi is actually one of the main actresses from beginning to end, so there's a lot of screen time. She actually gets to act a little bit more than the previous entry.
I heard the murder scene was really gruesome and that the children were hacked up into pieces.
She still gets naked in this one though too, so that was a bonus. Shotzi likes horror movies in general, so it's really cool to see her act in them. And I really wish that she would be able to do that more, but I know that WWE isn't that flexible, unless of course it's in a WWE Studios film. Which leads me to my next entry, No One Lives. Now this is a WWE film, and I don't know why. It only features one wrestler in it, which is Brodus Clay, or Tyrus. You get to see him get murdered and completely gutted as Luke Evans is exacting revenge and wears Brodus Clay's big body so that he's not seen by some of the people he's stalking. It's a really interesting movie and definitely on the higher budget because like I said, it is a WWE movie, but nobody really knows about it. It's still pretty good though. Next we've got Minutes to Midnight. This one stars Johnny Mundo, or John Morrison. He plays Travis. They're at a ski lodge, they're just on the mountain, and then the group of them start to get stalked by masked killers. It's a pretty straightforward kind of movie, but it is nice to see John Morrison in more films. He was in like a weird Hercules movie where he plays Hercules. We've seen him show up in Sharknado 5, and it's always nice to see a wrestler that's not just in a cameo role, but sticking around for a while. It's very few and far between. And last but not least, we have Wrestle Massacre. This is an indie film where we actually have some really great practical effects, and it stars Tony Atlas, Nikolai Volkov, Rene Dupree, Jimmy Valiant, and Sandman. They don't have the biggest roles, but they're here. And the movie is all about wrestling, and it's like probably the coolest name other than WrestleManiac. Because of the length, this does come off a little bit slow, but it could be worth your time if you're interested in throwing something on. There's not that many wrestling horror movies that are wrestling centric. An honorable mention that I haven't seen is called Parts Unknown, and it's also on Tubi, so I'll link that as well. But I wasn't sure like what it's about. It looks really cool and it looks crazy, but I've never seen it, and I don't really know who's featured in it. I saw like Jake Roberts was in it, Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret plays like a jobber, but it does have a really cool look, so that might be worth checking out as well. And then there's a couple others, but you can hear more about them on another video that I did over on Bloodbath and Beyond called Colobus that has Amy Weber as the main lead, and it's like Big Brother meets Saw kind of in a very weird 90s way. And then in another 90s movie, we have Masked Mutilator, which features Doug Flex and Brick Bronski. But if you want to check out that video, links in the description. Links in the description to all of the different movies that I've talked about today. I hope you enjoyed this. It's a little bit different, but I wanted to make this for our other channel anyway, and I figured I'll just put it here because there's a lot more wrestling fans here than there is there. So what'd you guys think? Let me know in the comments. And if you want me to make more lists on wrestlers in movies in general, maybe not horror, but comedies, because they show up in so many comedies, definitely let me know. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay up to date with everything Midcard Maniacs.